Hello, hello everyone. Welcome to our podcast with the fabulous Chloe Rose. Hello, Chloe.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today. And also thank you to everyone that put in a question about this topic, because it's a very important topic, lightly, highly controversial, if not on planet Earth, across the universe. And that is the topic of what I will carefully word as our own human biases towards different extraterrestrial, galactic, I don't really like the word, but alien beings around the universe, and even some of the fundamental underlying um, kind of conditioning and programming that we have as humans um,
Mhm.
towards each other and towards even other animals on Earth, and also towards we project these out onto other beings around the universe. So yeah, excited to cover a broad range today, and I'd love to hear all about your experiences, Chloe. How about we start with, and this super expansive um, journey is what are your experiences, for example, of some of the problems that we face, some of the human behaviors that we face towards different species of galactic beings?
First of all, thank you for having me. We've been talking about this for a while, haven't we? And then now
Yeah,
it's finally happened.
absolutely.
Um, I find it interesting that humans, I mean, it's a part of our conditioning, but we're so quick to jump the gun and be like, that's evil and that's good.
Yeah.
And how we do this with like galactic races or extraterrestrials, for me, just mirrors exactly the shadows that we face on Earth as humans as well, with all the wars and with everything going on, there's always the bad guy and the good guy. But it's for me personally, it's like, how can you think an extraterrestrial race is good or bad? Because you wouldn't do the same with a human race, right? Not everyone from Australia is evil. You just can't. There's no way you can say that and justify it. And the same with galactic races. And what I find interesting is it's almost like because they're not in like the physical human form in the same way that we have been experiencing our lives, it's almost like kind of easier to disassociate from them. So making them like the scapegoat and like, oh, they feel a little bit more disconnected from human form, so we can call them good or evil. But
Yeah.
really, if we're honest with ourselves and when we get like deep, deep, deep to the spiritual truth, all beings come from source.
Yeah.
And that can be quite a hard pill to swallow because even the most evil of beings, or what we would consider to be evil, just because that's their actions that they take, all come from source. And I think that's quite a difficult concept to actually accept that we all come from this one source. Yeah, but also there's stories, there's stories about these wars that happened between reptilians and Lyrans or whatever story you've heard, and we can latch onto things really easily and then just go back to that very human consciousness of good versus evil and wars and battles. So I do think it's kind of just a deeper conditioning.
Mhm. Wow. Yes. Yes. So much. Uh, You know the as we're starting it, it's this is we're still in the first few minutes, and we're starting. You touched on one of like the found that one of the your foundational beliefs that we'll come from the same place, same energy, the same creation force. Um, Source is my, and this is maybe like it's another this is another foundational belief for me or knowing for me, and you included Chloe. Not everyone needs to agree with this.
Mm.
The way I see, at least starting with we use Earth as an example, is that the darkest, most evil behavior that I see in any other human in on this earth, past, present, and future, that there's that I share the same frequency range or
Mhm.
thereabouts
Mhm.
as these humans from, good to bad, dark to light, and everything in between. And that if you put me in a series, John Binney, as it says here, if you put John Binney in a series of really horrible experiences in my life, or I
Mhm.
chose that, my soul chose that to take on that role in this life, then you would see a very different John Binney in front of you today. You would, that I am capable of those things, even though, even as I say them, those, and imagine some of the atrocities that we've seen in our human history, and I try and, part of me still tries to separate from that and say, no, 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 I'm John Binney, I'm all hi, it's John and love and light and singing songs and stuff. Like, I can't deny that I'm part of that same range, that same frequency range, and that really everything that I see around, at very least on planet Earth, is a reflection of me. And that really helps me begin to feel a bit more into these concepts like unity, because I feel unified at very least at the lower aspects. Like, I get it. If I was pushed that far or I chose that path, I could be destructive. I could be dark. And there's not a good or bad John. There's just this whole frequency range.
I love that. And look, we are black and white today.
Yeah, exactly.
Not pre-coordinated by anyone
That's
who
right.
is
Yeah.
watching this.
We
Well,
we
our
just
souls coordinated without our humanness
that's right.
knowing. I really love that you said that, actually, because yeah, I mean, this human body or this vessel, whatever you want to call it, we've got like energy generators within us. We could be consider it to be an instrument, right? And it just depends how we play, depends on the melody or the frequency that comes out of us. And so many people say to me, "Oh, you're so kind and you're so calm." And I'm like, "You should have met me 15 years ago. I was not a nice person. I would betray people and do awful things and steal money from people. And, luckily, I didn't go down real, real, real dark depths.
Mhm.
But that was a completely, completely different version of me. And you're right, if we are not consciously choosing to raise our vibration or at least maintain a high vibrational frequency, then we can easily be influenced by darker beings and other beings or influences at these lower, more dense frequencies. So I think what you said is amazing and it's true, but it's what we kind of don't want to admit to because it's pretty humbling as well to be like, yeah, I am capable of dark things, dark, dark things. And there are actually on record that you can find CIA experiments where they torture people and brainwash people, and what can be done to a human is quite shocking.
Yeah.
We are these instruments. We have these minds, which I see as like a program that can be programmed and unprogrammed and reprogrammed and rewired and upgraded. But we also, our bodies and our energy and our emotions are all as well can be shifted and changed with our control and also subconsciously and out of our control. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And it's this separation of like, oh, I'm on a spiritual path, so they're evil and I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just not true. And we don't want that separation. And when we do make these little mistakes, owning up to it and laughing about it, I think that's another thing. Bringing joy into the shadow too can
Yeah.
help on a very small and little scale. But yeah, I agree with that. A lot of this starts with that self um, taking responsibility of saying like, yeah, if I was in that position of having power over the entire world, would I use it to my advantage or would I actually do good for the whole world? We will never know because we would never put ourselves in that position. So it's sometimes quite nice to let your mind sort of unravel and keep asking these questions like, what if I was Donald Trump? Like, what would I be doing? It's just mind-boggling to even put yourself in that position because until you're in their shoes, there's no way of knowing how you would act and what
Yeah.
actions you would take.
Wonderful. Thank you. Um, and I also feel we've just as a segue into our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, is that one topic that I feel we're going to keep, or foundational belief we'll keep kind of bouncing in and out of, is there's lots of different terms for it. Toxic spirituality, spiritual bypassing, um, love and light brigade, these sorts of terms that really are at essence a denial of darkness.
Mm.
And isn't what's that saying? The cleverest thing the devil ever did was, convince humanity that it doesn't exist. And another way I describe it is that the superpower of the darkness is that it is illusion, and
Mm.
including the illusion to convince light that it's less powerful than it really is. And
Mm.
then the superpower of light is actually that it's stronger than darkness. And so they just have this constant interplay between what is not two separate parts, it's all one part of one spectrum. And I feel that I would never deny a past life, for example, where um I did really horrible things, and including in this life, like corporate John, like wasn't an amazingly super nice guy. Like he would make you work hard, right? And you go, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I mean, you'll see your family the next day. Like, why don't you just work late?" And now I think back to those conversations, I'm like, deep breath, deep breath, John. Okay, we can do this, forgive this. And for some of those people, I've met back up with them, since, and shared and apologized for some of those behaviors. Um, but I still accept it's me, and I would never deny it and never say, "Oh, that was the old me, throw that away." And I would never project that, or try my best not to project it onto others. So yeah, I do feel that there's almost this expectation, and I'm also including in this people that choose to live a happy, healthy life, and other people who choose to do work we're doing, like practitioners. When we're a practitioner of, we could be doing psychic work, Reiki, yoga, massage, reflexology, any of these modalities in service to others, counseling, whatever it is. It's very easy to try to be tempted to put ourselves on a pedestal, right? And say, "Oh no, I'm perfect. I every morning I meditate for 4 hours. And after drinking Mountain Dew from the top of my mountain, my Zen mountain that I live on, I take a stroll through the clouds, and then I eventually float down to earth and I tickle some humans, make them laugh, and then I head back up to the top of the mountain, and it starts again." And the reality is, you know, many of us have chosen a pretty deep, dark, dense existence here on Earth, and to be part of this human experiment, this human experiment experience, if I can say it. So where am I going with all this? Yeah, I feel it is, ironically, for spirituality as a topic and domain, I feel this calling, this really strong calling for inclusivity. To never say, well, some people or some countries or some planets or some solar systems or galaxies or species are or aren't spiritual, are or aren't good, or even to judge them in any way, and to frankly try and avoid judging anyone at all. And if you do want to form judgments, to do it on an individual level based on a friendship, based on the connection that you have, and not
Hmm.
reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. Judgment, and a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't judge. I feel yes and no, because I feel like as humans, we just automatically judge people. We all have an opinion. It happens. But what you said was beautiful, because it's like, yes, judge, but only on your one-to-one personal experience with a being, whether
Mhm.
they're human or galactic.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah, and I agree. And with I think also we have to be careful, because there's a lot of people calling out spirituality on social media, but that also has a shadow to it, because that can cause people to retract and question themselves in a negative way and actually think, oh, this is all bullshit and I'm going to stop. So we have to also have some compassion for people who are on a spiritual journey and just perhaps haven't gone into the depths of the shadow work yet. Because I do feel like it's a part of the journey. We do perhaps start treading in the more shallow waters before we're ready to dive deep. And, there's nothing wrong with love and with light. We want that for all humans. That's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, I have had friends who have said to me, "Oh, you're too negative. I don't want to be your friend." I'm like, "I'm definitely not negative. I am just calling it as it is." And I would say that that would be a good example of the toxic
Mhm.
spirituality, where it's just like, "No, I don't want to deal with it unless you're being really kind and fluffy towards me."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
Totally.
yeah, but yeah, I would even say just being careful to really not point the finger, because sadly, I've seen a lot of amazingly incredible, magical, powerful souls who are in no way bypassing, who have really retracted from their magic and from their gifts, because so many people are again causing this divide and saying, "Oh, because you like crystals, you're a fake spiritual." And again, it's like generalizing and pointing the finger, which goes so perfectly with this conversation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Wow.
think what me and John are trying to say is judge only through someone's direct actions towards you or towards a loved one. And I was having this conversation with a friend earlier, actually. She's known, like, if someone is abusive towards me, then of course I'm going to question that person's actions and choose to separate myself from them. But generalizing and pointing the finger is only feeding the beast of
Mm.
separation that we're experiencing on Earth. And I also loved what you said about, climbing up the mountain and then only coming back down and living like that. And, I've learned firsthand from living in various countries in the world, you can only run so far away from suffering. Like the shadow is always going to follow you wherever you go. And I also have friends who live in other parts of the country, and they're doing amazing humanitarian work, and they are so happy and living a fulfilling life, but it's still effing hard,
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. There's no such thing as this perfect bubble unless we really are sacrificing or not facing certain parts of reality. So it is this
Mm.
balance of darkness and light.
Wonderful. Thank you. Also, thank you for always responding so freely and accurately whenever I don't ask you a question, which in like podcast style, it's like I'm breaking the rules. Like I didn't even ask you something, and you just follow on beautifully. So thank you.
I
Um,
I like just a free flow conversation
yeah.
style. Someone sometimes if someone asks me a question, I'm a bit like, don't know.
So my next question, um, yeah, so the other theme I have is I hate being constrained, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had all that and until last year and when I left 26 years in software and it's like now I don't have a boss, right? I have clients, right? And there are many and it's lovely and everyone's got their own opinions and their own experiences. And I remember when I started live streams on YouTube about a year ago, there was I was nervous about showing my whole self. Sorry, I keep getting electrocuted by this, just little electric shocks from this USB cable. I was nervous about showing my whole self live, and I feel some of that fear is a little bit of past life fear of, saying, "Hi, I'm Joe Binney, I'm psychic," and then there's also well, what if I bring forward, for example, more controversial aspects of my superpowers, and I feel it really is a superpower, is my dragon-like language,
Mm.
and I was like, I don't know, it's like, when I speak, it's like a rah. It's like this big release, and it's so comfortable to do. And I never knew I could do that vocally. If I had, I probably would have done it in songs, years ago. And it's such fun to do, and it feels so powerful. And it's like Marmite. I don't know how popular Marmite is around the world, or Vegemite or whatever it is in other countries. All right, yeah, right. So you either love it or hate it. Um, and I feel that my dragon-like language can be a bit like that too. As I speak it, as I roar, when I'm doing healing work or channeling a message, that some people are just like, what is this? Is this reptilian? Is it draconian? It's loud, it's different to the very different to the hi, it's John. Rah! It's like, what just happened? That energy is so different. And yet my initial reaction was thankfully just my reaction when some people complained about it on my YouTube channel. Some clients even canceled sessions or left, like they
Wow.
left me. And I was like, good, because I'm glad that's now. I'm glad that's earlier on in my journey. And if I react with a fear of like, oh, I can't do that.
Mm.
I really need the business. Like I need to pay my bills. I need to feed my family. I'll leave the dragon for later, or I would like, make excuses. Whereas actually, especially when it's a superpower, and I feel that resonate back to me a lot. A lot of people really enjoy it, is that, well, I'm not for everyone. Not everyone needs to like it. Not everyone needs to enjoy receiving that. I would always uh, ask permission. Well, especially for someone that's new. I didn't ask you today, Chloe. Um, but I would always like at least introduce it. And I feel that that was a big thing for me on a journey to starting to be more comfortable with all of the spirit guides I have across lots of different realms, across where are they all from? Earth, the Mantis guide from, well, she lives on a Galactic Federation ship. There's my Lyran guide from Lyra. There's two Syrian guides. I have a reptilian guide and some others too. And a like my lowest vibration guide. And what's really funny is everyone's like, I think he just said reptilian.
Yeah.
And it's like even excuse me. So it's a whisper and it hurts my throat chakra. And that's not my lowest vibration guide. And I'd love to touch on, either any questions you have about all of what I've just said or any of your experiences, Chloe.
Hmm. I love that. I love that you spoke about the dragon light language. There's a few things that I feel about that, and it's like it's kind of, and we've said this before, it's similar to like heavy metal and
Yeah.
screaming. And for me, there's this real primal power in
Mhm.
doing that. And I honestly think that scares people because
Yeah.
that awakens this kind of primal urge of releasing and like roaring. It is that like really strong power that we possess within us. And I honestly think that terrifies people. And if they don't know what it is, too, that just adds another layer of fear. And
Yeah.
that's like a lot of these things, and with your guides as well, like talking about reptilians, they might have heard someone talking about the queen being a reptilian, and then they're like, he goes down on this spiral
Mm.
of negative thought processes and ideas because it's that fear of unknown. And I also feel that it stems from the fear of feeling like, oh, I don't know, so I should have an opinion on it
Mhm.
rather than being open to it, right? And it's so interesting about the reptilian guys. If we think about humans, right? Humanity, some of us, have memories of being star seeds and being all different types of beings. Some of us just believe that we're human, and that's all beautiful. But look at humans and how many humans who are on the lowest of the scale in terms of their actions and their choices, and then humans on the highest of the scale, and everywhere in between. Surely it's the same for other beings.
Yeah.
Even, you said a low vibrational guy from hell, right? Or he was from hell, if I'm
Yeah. He'd done his time
remembering
there. That's right. Yeah.
correctly. And then you have a reptilian guide, but it's like we don't know their actions. So they could just, if we compare it as like a human, until, like you said beautifully at the start of this, until we actually communicate with them and get a deeper understanding of their intentions, then how can we judge, if they're good or bad or evil? Because that is how we would judge a human. So for me, it's like we should take probably a little bit more care when we're dealing with beings from other planets and other vibrations, because there can be beings that come to trick us as well. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that, about discernment. And I'd like to ask that, like asking the right questions, and maybe some signs that, or things that people could ask about certain beings. Because for
Yeah.
me, it's more of a feeling. Like I
Mhm.
kind of know. I sometimes I get a bit scared, but then I'm like, okay, no, let me just feel into the energy and then I'll talk to the being and I'll know quite quickly if they have come with good intentions or not. But I'd love to ask you about that, like how you maybe talk about these two guides. So the lower vibrational being and the reptilian guide, maybe like a quick talk, like tell us how you met them and your
Yeah.
introduction to them and how your relationship formed for you now to call them your guides. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so Lucy is my reptilian guide, and she appeared well really before my awakening, right? Which was to the unawakened John. I was like, what is this? And I what would happen is before I went to sleep at night, I would be, this was in a previous house. I'd be closing off all the lights downstairs, closing all the doors, turn off the lights before I went to bed. And I just had this aware. I kept seeing in like my mind's eye
Mhm.
this what looked like a kind of miniature Godzilla walking around my garden, and I couldn't really. My senses weren't really geared up for it. Like I didn't know what I was perceiving, but it was a thought that kept happening, and always the same. The this being, this little Godzilla, was like walking around outside, pacing, and was a standing guard. Was like highly protective. But my first feelings were the very first feeling was like, oh no, there's like there's like Godzilla doesn't really get it. I mean, I'm a big Godzilla fan, but it doesn't always get a good rap, right? And it's always that in the movies, it's always like, where on the spectrum is Godzilla right now? You get to feel into that. And that was very much how it felt for me. I began to realize that at the time I was very engaged with I was in my kind of truther conspiracy phase. I was spending hours and hours pouring my spare time and energy into conspiracies. And I felt what was actually happening was that this being was helping shield off a lot of the negative energy that I was attracting. Um, and then they went very quiet I went through my awakening, and a couple of years later, once I started, it was actually when I asked for a lineup. I was in a hotel room in Canada, traveling with work, my old job, sat there meditating. It's like, oh, what if I asked all my spirit guides to do a lineup and say hello? And then there appeared my I worked through them, and there appears Lucy as she introduces herself or reintroduces herself. And the first feeling I had when she introduced herself was that she's about mid-range, right, in my spirit guides frequencies. Because I ordered them all in. I said, please stand up in your order of frequency. She was about mid-range, and that same very motherly, protective energy came forwards,
Mm.
and she like whispered her name to me, and I would say there's nothing deceitful or any illusion about it. A fierce protective mother is how I describe her energy. And so that felt really that felt like a mother's love, like clear and pure. And I I'm proud of her. Like I'm proud to have her as a guide. I would never want to hide that and say, oh, I don't talk about that one. I don't talk about that one. Um, for my lowest vibration guide, Marek, so he didn't appear to quite a lot later to me. I saw him in the lineup, and then I remember writing a song about him. I think it's actually called Marek. Um, and he's so funny, so grumpy, right? He's like he's the guy you go to in a bad mood and complain about things, and he's he reminds me a lot of me when I'm stressed out and anxious and just burnt out those moments. And yet I know he's literally been to hell and back. I know he's been and to the upper levels of hell and lived there in lifetimes before. And that when he's come back, he still chooses to go back there sometimes if if I need help. Like if I need help with some of the work I do now, in particular with clients who have negative attachments or undergoing like a demonic attack. Um, and that, some of these practices I'm really just adopting are very human practices, right? Like build a relationship, talk to
Mhm.
them, find out their name, what most dominantly, what is the energy that you feel? So on a low vibration to a high vibration, um, from sadness and fear. If I was only ever scared of some of my spirit guides, I don't think I'd really interact with them. I'd close my heart to them. I'd close my heart to that opportunity. And yet I feel, I don't know, you know me quite well, Chloe, right? Is I'm actually very what's the word? Uh cynical and highly discerning for people because I've had problems, especially since I entered the spiritual domain. It attracts a lot of people. Everyone wants to be your friend, and then, but that's not what actually they want. They'll say that, and they might even say it to themselves, but they often want something else from you. And I've I've had a lot of challenges with people who, um, are kind of hiding these aspects from themselves. And often it's their own darkness they're hiding from themselves. And so that when they come to you in a connection or a friendship, suddenly that's there too. And it's not healed, it's not resolved, it's not even spoken about. And that's a big red flag for me, just like in any human friendship. Same with my spirit guide, same with any extraterrestrial I meet. One of the first things I ask is like, what is your weakness? What's your darkness? Like what are you scared of? What are your clear intentions towards me? Why are you here to help me? And whenever they answer, I don't go, well, they said they're here to help with my ascension. It's always about the feeling. It's like, how does that feel in my heart?
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Pleasure.
I think another one of my mentors, she always said, like, if you're ever in doubt, ask 3 times because a being is not allowed to lie more than 3 times. That made me laugh, and that's always stuck with me. Like, ask 3 times. And there are these like spiritual laws of three where if you get like a sign 3 times, then it's confirmed. So you can reverse that and be like, ask them something 3 times, and they can't lie 3 times.
Wow. Yeah, there's definitely magic in that.
Mm. And isn't that beautiful? You know, you've got this guide who has been to hell and back, and he's there to help you with that really necessary work, and I can speak firsthand. I've been on that journey with you to hell and back, and it's really powerful work. And it's the thought of it is scary, but it's not scary because it's so necessary. And
Mm.
it's like we can't hide those parts of ourselves and deny those parts of ourselves. The quicker that we can embrace the very spectrum of dark and light within us, the more that we'll accept it all around us and realize actually how much power we do have as an individual, because we get to choose. We get to choose if we go down the dark path, or we get to choose if we're going to be a part of actually making a difference and a bigger impact on this earth. And I think that's what a lot of people can get overwhelmed by when we are just drowned in darkness and disaster and chaos, because it's taking away from actually how much power we possess in our own individual actions and choices and words and what we do. So it's like, just keep coming back to yourself, and don't let that separation guide you in any way, whether it's galactic beings and your guides. And like, just don't question your heart. Don't question your heart. And if there is a being around that you're unsure about, you can also look at your own actions, because I've found that suddenly I can get really fatigued for long periods of time, or I can start really craving unhealthy foods, and all things like that are things to be aware of. It can, like you said, people can have these attachments of these beings that we let in because we haven't had enough discernment. So even if you're watching this and you are not really able to communicate with a being, but you know there's a being around, watch your own actions and watch your own thoughts. So there's suddenly these thoughts telling you that you're not good enough, or anger suddenly inside you. It's all a part of, yeah, learning to discern what the true intention is of these beings and energies around us and what we choose to let in as well.
Oh, beautiful. And I feel so much of it's about honoring the full spectrum of ourselves.
Mm.
Like I'm attempting to today with my white background, my black top, and white name, and you have some darker makeup and a lovely white top, and it feels that I would never want to hide parts of my myself or the the souls of the spirits that I've asked, or my soul has asked at the very least, to be part of my spirit team. Um, and yeah, there's some of the feelings that I have, well, predictions include a fake alien invasion, right? So this is how the current timeline, if you choose it, if the third dimension is, enforcing and promoting separation between humans to
Mhm.
get us to be scared of each other. It's like, oh, look at Chloe. She has long hair. And I'm like, she's like, look at Johnny has short hair. And it's like, that's it. Like we're done, like whatever the differences are. And I feel some of them, although they're so ridiculous to talk about even like hair length as being something you can guarantee at some point in the past, right? We've had some past life trauma, and some of these things are like playing these repeating patterns of, oh well, I was a witch, and or I was a indigenous or native person, and I had like longer hair because it helped me connect with nature, and it was seen as a sign of masculinity. And actually, as a teenager, I did have long hair. And what I find really fascinating is that this next, proposed wave is like a fake alien invasion, right? So it's you think humans are scary, right? There's like these aliens, right? And the fake aspect is it doesn't really matter whether they're actually from other planets or not.
Yeah.
The point of the word fake is more the energy behind it is to promote fear. It's to get us to be scared of another thing outside of us and and to encourage us to be scared of anything outside of us, right? It's like, that's not me. It's something else must be bad, and that must be my immediate reaction. And yet, time and time again, we feel in our lives the power of love bridges these gaps. We fall in love like cats fall in love with dogs, and we fall. People opposites attract, and people fall in love across these boundaries so freely. And if anything, it encourages people they're like, oh, look at you're so different. I celebrate that. I celebrate that. And all we really see across the universe, and okay, in the work, a lot of the work we do right now is very much meditation and astral projection, remote viewing, and dream time, and also an increasing amount of physical interactions. But we're being encouraged to start to celebrate the
Mhm.
uniqueness of each of us. Every single one of us, every the trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of living things across the universe are all unique. And adding these labels only ever serves, I mean, it can help at least identify maybe where you're from. But even my mantis guide, Marita, she doesn't like naming her planet because
Mhm.
she lives on a ship now and she spent most of her life on a ship. So she's like, why would I bother telling you about some other place I've barely been in? It doesn't identify me. Why would you want to project a human label upon it? Isn't it
Yeah.
okay to just acknowledge where my home is right now, where I call home? Sometimes I feel that about being born in England in Leicester for a year and now 47 years in Scotland. At which point do I call myself Scottish? Scottish. And it's these sorts of things that why does any of this really matter?
Yeah.
See
Mhm.
beyond the labels and feel into the uniqueness and celebrate that beautiful uniqueness with every being of every form.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We get so attached onto these things like where we're from and our nationality. I mean, there's on a different layer to that, I do love honoring the ancestors of the land, because there's a lot of teachings that can come through that in the way that we can live as a human.
Yeah.
But in the way that we're talking about, I love that. I've also got a couple of guides who won't tell me the name of the planet because they just don't want, like you said, they don't want to put
Mhm.
a label on it, and they don't want to make that attachment. And I think that's beautiful. And we think about all of these stories, like love always wins in the fantasy stories, and humans love a love story, and we love a happy ending. And we know, I believe, in our heart of hearts, that love always wins. I feel like that flame in our hearts will never go out. We know that as humans. It's just what we see around us isn't reflecting that currently, but we do actually have the choice to create that. And love always wins. And humans and beings, we are all one, and we are all from source. And I watched this great thing ages ago. It was like a spiritual teaching. He was describing the scale that we were talking about of like darkness to light, and he was relating it to the musical notes and the chakra systems and the dimensions, and you know, when you're just like
Yeah.
but he was explaining that like God is in the highest dimension, but God is in the complete and utter black of the void, the no thingness and
Mhm.
the everythingness of creation. You
Yeah.
find God in both ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum. And I really loved that. And I feel that for some reason, the darkness just scares us so much. But that is actually where like the power is, in the nothingness, when we're like, oh my God, I've been afraid of this dark space for so long because it's there in the darkness. If I talk about more in terms of like meditation and working on ourselves, when we go into the darkness, that's when we actually discover parts of ourselves that we didn't even know were there, or that we haven't awakened in this lifetime. Whereas when we are constantly seeking the light and ascending, it's beautiful and we can feel amazing and full of energy. But I find that it can keep us, this is what we were talking about earlier, about that level of spirituality where it can be bypassing, because we feel like we have to constantly be in this state of feeling high all the time and high vibration. But then we miss that like deep, juicy godliness of the complete and utter darkness, which we're so scared of, but holds so much power in the stillness. And I don't know if you've heard about these, John, but there's actually darkness retreats,
Oh, wow.
and they've created these spaces where you are in utter darkness,
Mhm.
complete darkness, and you stay for 3 days, all the way up to a week, I think, and you just have
Wow.
someone who opens a flap and gives you food, and you have to navigate your way around the darkness. And it's, yeah, it's incredible. And when you read back on Indigenous tribes and First Nations people,
Mhm.
they would actually bury themselves alive for
Wow.
weeks at a time to be in the darkness and literally face the fear of dying, face the fear of being alone, face the fear of the unknown.
Incredible.
And that's where like true power comes from, you know. And we're so scared of the darkness, but actually the darkness is just unknown. So we're disempowering ourselves by believing that there is evil in darkness.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I I feel one elephant in the room about source and um God and other you know other terms that people have for their God, for their creator or creative force, is that, you know, what is the frequency spectrum of that being,
Mhm.
deity, or collective that you kind of you spiritually subscribe to? Because for me, source is it is a collective consciousness that you can connect with as an individual. Like, you can ask it questions and stuff. Um, but my feeling of source is that it has has access to the entire frequency range.
Mhm.
Um, and that early on in my journey when I started working with clients and helping them with soul retrievals, and these are fragments of their souls down in the lower levels of hell. Quite quickly, I ended up going to the lowest level of hell, which is on a hell's elevator is level minus 99. And it's kind of surprising. You think, why is there a bottom? Like, why? But
Mhm.
it reminds me a lot of the temperature measurement Kelvin. Is it minus 273 Kelvin or something? Where basically there is a minimum temperature in the universe because at some point everything just goes completely black and there's just nothing
Yeah.
there. And that's it. You can't have less than that. It's just nothing.
Hmm.
Um, whereas the opposite's true for light. And when I went to the lowest levels of hell and I met those beings, they're giant. They're bigger than Earth.
Hmm.
I felt pretty small in that moment. But what shocked me was that they had a tiny, teeny amount of light in
Hmm.
their hearts. And that was such a huge epiphany for me. It's like, you're not separate. And they're like, we are, or they're like, we are. And, and And I was like, hang on a minute, you're not. You're just like you. And they're like this, they're like, no, there's nothing here to see.
Covering.
Like, there's the darkness. I'm dark. I'm evil. And they were pretty bad, right? They're definitely down there on kind of planet eating style levels of evil. Yet there's light in them, and this is how I feel light is more powerful than that darkness, but you have to have both. Like you can't, if you, it would just be such a flat, boring universe if we only had one end of the spectrum, whichever end that was, or just one limited frequency. And so I do feel that so much of this is like allowing ourselves to really feel into where, when I'm connecting with a extraterrestrial being or another human or some other spiritual um, soul is that where feeling with your heart, our hearts have the superpower of discernment, right? They can tell immediately how it feels. So many of us have we've been teaching our hearts like, shut up. It's like, stop talking. And I mean, my friend likes Chloe, so why have you got a problem with Chloe Hart? And the heart's like, use this thing, you've got to know. And it's like, shh, we're doing a podcast. You know, these feelings, none of that was true, but these feelings were so used to suppressing. And so
Yeah.
being open with the hearts my first tip is I always place my hand on my heart. Whenever I want to feel something, if I'm not just, chatting with my mind and with my voice, I really want to feel something, I place my hand on my heart. And it includes if someone's being horrible to me in person, or if there's a being that I'm working with, or facing or opposing. I just ask my heart, where on the spectrum is this? Because even just like Patch, my little Papillon, he gets scared and becomes aggressive to other dogs when they intimidate him. Doesn't mean that is that different to his own shame as a much lower vibration where he might be quiet. Yeah, it is different. It feels different in my heart. And I find that practice really helpful for no matter what frequency of darkness to light, um, and whether people believe in source or God or whatever the spiritual beliefs they are, at least feeling with your heart, because we all have those, um, and letting your heart answer for you.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of just saying, hold on a minute, I'm just gonna take a pause in time and go into my heart. And sometimes even just having that moment of silence can just calm everything down. I love
Mhm.
that. And something that just came up when you were talking about and what you said about Patch, he gets aggressive. Like we all have our tendencies to do things that someone else may deem to be evil or wrong or something, but there are humans who do really unforgivable things. But if you dig a little and look into their past or look into their circumstances, it's literally a reaction of what they've had to survive through their whole life. And I'm not saying it's forgivable, but a level of understanding can really help to build on compassion as
Yeah.
humans. And even if we look at other beings, right? There are some beings, I believe, that do feed off high vibrational energy. They
Yeah.
feed off that. They want to leech off your energy. But you could just say they're just really hungry.
Yeah. They need
You
surprise.
know, you could just be compassionate about it. Like they're just trying to survive. So how can I be responsible for that? I can understand that that's what they want, but I can refuse it. Right? And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to hold compassion for what we would consider to be evil actions or
Mhm.
actions that we couldn't see ourselves doing, but
Yeah.
actually trying a little bit to understand. Like most people are just reacting out of their own pain, fear, or lack of love.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful compassion.
Mhm.
I you remind me of my mantis guide Marita. One of her jobs is facilitation. You could describe it as we would in human terms we describe it as negotiating peace deals with different galactic races.
Mhm.
And I can't remember if you were in one of these sessions that I did this, Chloe, but I asked her, how do you do it? Like, what's your magic, Marita? Like, how do you bring opposing forces together? Because so many of them, and well, we're going to hear more about this, right? There'll be more fear propaganda about Lyrans versus reptilians, or now they're friends, or be scared, of like these
Yeah.
alliances, or whatever variations there are. And please, everyone, use your discernment, right? Just feel that with your heart. Ask your heart how true that really feels for you. Um, what Marita does is this really simple practice. So first of all, she gets both groups, and they're often like in separate physical rooms because they would just attack each other. Maybe get one from each group, a representative from each group, and when they come together, she leads the conversation, and this is as much as she can energetically with them, get them to talk about what do they love, who do they love, like do they have loved ones, um, what is it they want for their loved ones, and what is it that is unique about them, and then finally what are they scared of, like what are their shadows. And the practice of this, what it does is encourage both opposing parties to then see, well, we all have loved ones who we want to protect. And it's sometimes that's maybe they've even lost every family member and friend, but it's the planet they want to protect or something. And then they'll all have this desire for abundance and happiness for all of their loved ones. And then also this future of like, well, I would like my future, to be abundant and happy for my family, my friends, my country, my planet, my star system, whatever that is. And then what she does is finally when they begin to start to see the themes are true, it doesn't matter what size and shape you are from wherever you are in the universe, as they start to realize, they start to have what happens is they have these like there's a connection between them. They realize, hang on, your Lyran daughter is so similar to my reptilian father or whatever it is. And they see the themes, and they start to realize that, oh, actually, we're all really similar with these themes, especially the strongest emotions of love, and also the fears and shadows are often very similar.
Mhm.
And then when they're ready, and this is like after lots of bonding, and discussions and sharing of speaking each other's truths and respectfully sharing the aspects of each other. Then she, when they're ready, brings them together in unity and asks them, to extend their hearts to each other, which they never would have done and they were always fighting that so fiercely. But later they find that actually there's so many similarities between them, even though they're totally unique and they celebrate the uniqueness, they still see that there's some value in at least experiencing that. And when their hearts connect, it's like this beautiful like love explosion. It's like the you guys could be friends. Like we could help each other. We could work together. We don't have, there's more than enough in this universe for us instead of fighting over it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work every single time, right? But what it does do is give a beautiful opportunity, because I know as we come to the end and we connect with that feeling of unity is how on earth do you get to there and what is unity? Like, I don't want to lose myself. I still want this hoodie. I don't want it to just say source. I want it to,
Oh.
it might say John Binney connected with source, but it's still John Binney. Um, and I feel that this is where I feel we have an opportunity is to really celebrate the uniqueness so that when you tell me about your guides and those two that haven't named themselves, you get to say, and this is their names, and ta-da, look where they're from. And it's like that's so unique. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And that's so beautiful, finding that common ground is what brings people together. And there's this kind of running joke that on Earth, there shouldn't be any politicians allowed unless they've done like 10 ayahuasca ceremonies because it gives you an ego death, makes you face your fears, and it opens up your heart and connects you to love. And it's a similar thing, it's like, where have we lost these actually very basic human values of honoring our similarities so that we can then celebrate our individual uniqueness.
Mhm.
But it's so true, like all beings, whether they're human or non-human, we all have something that we love and something that we want to protect and fight for. And that's so beautiful. That is love, that is the fierceness of love, the courage of love, the compassion of love. Yeah, and that's how we should view all beings, galactic and human, animals, not forgetting about the amazing animal beings, the plants. Like a lot of people don't even accept that plants have spirits. Plants have spirits. I'm not saying don't eat vegetables. I'm not saying that. Yeah, they're plant behind you. But everything is working in this symbiosis together. Everything has an energy to it, and there's everything that's living has a spirit. Some people believe that some plants are evil. Well, it's all a part of the same ecosystem. We're all a part of the same universe and the same cosmos.
Yeah.
So it's only going to be full of war and chaos and division if we allow it to be.
Mhm. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Chloe, for helping guide me and us through what is a highly controversial subject. And it's the funniest things because out of all the controversy, if anything, the controversy should be about these foundational principles, right? Like right back at the start, and then also just now at the end. And it's this bit in between that, as humans, we get really, really stuck on sometimes.
Mhm.
And my final advice is for people who are watching this, and perhaps there's part of you that you've been hiding, right? There's been part of your darkness, part of your experiences. Maybe they're part of your spirit guide team. Maybe you've had more physical interactions with beings not of this earth that are often labeled, they get to have a bad reputation. They're often labeled as low vibration. Feel free to share that in the comments. Feel free to share in this safe space. You're not going to have me pouncing on you in the comments. And even if I disagree, I'll thank you for sharing your truths. And I'd also encourage you, for those that you follow, for those that inspire you, I feel we as humanity have an opportunity to encourage that within the people that we follow and say, like, ask yourself, what are they hiding? Are
Mm.
they, what are they hiding from me? What are they hiding from themselves? On my journey, I could have, I started out just only love and light, very super. And after a few years, I was drawn deep into the dark world of negative entity clearing and had to face all those fears. And so that journey really helped me get a sense of my whole. And I've also been through very deep dark shadow work, which is public on John Binney's Deepest Darkest Shadow Work from the summer of 2023. And that's an attempt to me saying, I hope it doesn't get worse than that. But if it does, I'll go public about it again. And I'd love to, even as our careers, especially for us, Chloe, as our careers and what we're doing continue to expand, to encourage each other and others to, and by leading by example and saying, please do share all aspects of you. You can be private about things, that where it is likely to affect others in particular, please do share all these aspects of you and let people's hearts decide, not the algorithms, not, some policy or even laws. It's more about um, our hearts and letting our hearts lead the way into this future.
I love that. And also, I feel that we have a responsibility for people who are on their journey and also for the next generation. So, the more that we can share, I don't like the word mistakes, but I'm not saying it in the term of regretting it. But
Mhm.
if we share our mistakes or our missteps and share our shadows, then at least other people can choose whether to use that as a lesson to guide them or if they still want to make their own mistakes and go down that path themselves. But if we talk about it, then at least we're putting it out there. And then some people might see it and think, oh gosh, I don't feel like such a terrible person anymore. It's not just me. And that's what we need to do in this very strange AI world that we're moving into, which we can't avoid because it's happening. But what we can do is stand together as humans and conscious beings. And a way of acting rebelliously to that is by actually speaking from our hearts and sharing from our hearts more and more and allowing that authentic voice to come through.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. For people that haven't met you before, but they feel that they resonate
Right.
with your work, with your energy, how do people get in contact with you?
The best way is through my website because then you can see everything on there, which is mystichearts.org. All my social medias are at mystic_hearts with a 3 and a 4 for the E and the A.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for coming along today, and I look forward to no doubt discussing and experiencing more controversial subjects in the future.
Yes, I'm
It's
sure.
a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Chloe, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. See you. Bye.